title over the Steelers, but just the one. McCarthy didn't have playoff success with Dallas, even though he got them in continuously. Rodgers has had playoff failures since that championship, even though he performed admirably in most of those games. But he also had some playoff games where he flat didn't play well with the favored team. We know what happened a year ago for Rodgers and the Steelers. Do you get a sense at all from Rodgers, McCarthy, or just one or the other, that they in any way care about their legacy, have any of that at their mind? How do you think their legacies can change? And, before you answer, I will add just quickly in, Rodgers may not admit it. I do think he's conscious of his legacy, maybe more than McCarthy. He's very familiar with the history of the game. He's a student of the game, for that phrase. He may not admit this, but I do kind of think it bothers him, at least the way he comes off when people ding him out of top 5, top 10 all-time lists because of a playoff record, whether that's fair or not. So there's something on the line this year, even though he already has a ring and is already going to the Hall of Fame. But is that at all in existence when you're covering the team in Pittsburgh every day, or is that just national fodder?
I mean, I don't think we think about that every day in Pittsburgh. I don't feel like how this legacy comes together.
Sure.
It's also weird because that legacy is almost all tied to another city. It's different than when we had the conversations around Tomlin and Ben, which were all centralized in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Like, I think, there are a lot of people that even if you watch football a lot, you weren't in Green Bay. You weren't in there intimately. They're in the NFC on top of this, right? It's like you kind of have to familiarize yourself with the lore of Rodgers and McCarthy, and then you go through it, and it is a pretty frustrating legacy. Like,
right.
It's not all that dissimilar from Ben and Tomlin. Now, Ben won 2, but only one of them was with Mike, right? And you feel like during that Killer Bees era, they probably should have won one, and they never did.
Yeah, you could argue that. Yeah, 100%.
And so, with Rodgers and McCarthy, it was like, okay, they peak at the Super Bowl win, and then it was like failure, and then eventually McCarthy's scheme became extremely outdated. He was running 1990s offense.
What, 27 years old when he won his championship, never even got back in the Super Bowl after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Rodgers, I mean, we want to talk about the fraying of the relationship. You look back at some of the interviews Rodgers had in 17 and 18. I mean, he's basically calling McCarthy's scheme
100%. Yes.
I mean, and then McCarthy goes into basically hiding for a year, comes back in 2020 with Dallas, and it's a totally different scheme. Like, there's a lot of RPO stuff. Like, they called it, it's not the West Coast. Sometimes they would refer to it in Dallas as the Texas Coast. That's what it was, because it's a different scheme. Now, some of it was for Dak specifically, but credit to Mike McCarthy. He went around the league in 2019 and late 2018 after he got fired midseason and said, screw it, I'm going to rework my offensive scheme. And the scheme is very different. And so I wonder now, because we saw him from one year to the next, after a year off, change his scheme. Well, did he do more this year to change it, right?
Yeah, you'd think he'd have to. Rodgers is not as mobile as he was when he was at Green Bay. If you have an RPO type of West Coast offense, that doesn't work for a 43-year-old quarterback.
No, it doesn't. And Dak, I mean, he changed it even after Dak's ankle injury. That was early, and they changed it a little bit more when Dak's still mobile, but not as mobile as he once was.
Sure.
And so there were a lot of changes where he kind of made it more of a vertical offense. Once, Pickens kind of came in last year. When you look at the Schottenheimer scheme, like, that became more vertical. But even once CD started to kind of come up in 23 and 24 as like this elite guy, they started to push the ball down the field more. And Schottenheimer just kind of built on that last year. But McCarthy was moving towards that. And so it's kind of funny when you look at that. But the legacy part of this, I think Rodgers is more cognizant of it than maybe McCarthy is. But, you look at it, and how can their legacy change? Listen, I think it's going to be pretty surprising to just about everybody if they win the Super Bowl this year. I just think it is. Rodgers at 42, eventually 43 in December.
It'd be freaking historic. It would basically be Brady and it would happen there, but that was even more of a stacked team. Right. Yeah, they would be incredible.
I mean, Rodgers has not aged as gracefully as Tom Brady did.
Not at all.
So it's just probably unlikely that happens. But one thing that you can say is, what if they just make a run, this kind of Cinderella run to the AFC Championship game? Because I'll tell you this.
Nick, what if they win a freaking playoff game? We all know how long it's been for the Steelers franchise and Mike Tomlin. It's actually been since 2020 that Aaron Rodgers won a playoff game, and he's been in the playoffs since then. And his playoff record for a legendary Hall of Famer, and of course, I know this as well as you, it's not all on the quarterback, but it gets tagged to him. He's at 500. He's 11-11. He needs to, if he gets in and loses, he will retire under 500 in the postseason.
Yep.
He may, and that may not be cared about for the Hall of Fame, but I do think Rodgers cares a little. I do think he cares about his place in history, where he is. I think he is much more conscious of that than he will admit. I don't think he'll ever answer a question in an interview that he cares. I think if they lose a playoff game, maybe he'll sit out, maybe you won't hear from him for a year. He won't do any interviews, and he'll just say, I'm fine. I won a ring. I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to cry about one season at the end. But I do think in the back of his mind, he'll think, I let a lot of playoff games go that I should have won. And I think that will stick in his craw at 60 years old at some point.
Sure. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I also think you look at Rodgers particularly.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a guy that was a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah, 4
earlier this decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't win.
Those weren't the title years.
Right. Those first few years with LaFleur, he was unbelievable, and they didn't win a playoff game. I mean, that's crazy when you think about that.
Yeah.
And so, when he's
at those 3 12-win seasons in a row for McCarthy without winning any type of a playoff run with Dallas. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? When you think about that, Rodgers, I do think this is something, and kind of where I was going. If they make a run in the postseason, even if they win a playoff game, I'll go back to Favre when he went to Minnesota, and they come back. And
he helped his legacy. Yeah, 100%.
He helped his legacy by going to that NFC title game. Now, they were very close to going to the Super Bowl that year. If he doesn't throw that pick, the Tracy Porter, they're in the Super Bowl. And I think that changes his legacy. But even that run did change his legacy. If the Steelers come out this year and, they're dominant and, they're like Minnesota was that year. What was Minnesota that year? 13-3?
I believe so, and that was also Favre's best. Obviously, the interceptions were known as part of him. He only threw 7 picks that whole year. He was different than he was with the Jets, or even the end of Green Bay when they had the NFC title run. Not getting to a Super Bowl, but even getting to the NFC title game and adding one more appearance there, even though he threw that pick at the end and lost that game. It did help his legacy a little bit. I mean, really, it really, really did. He had the back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, won, but that was in the 90s. We're talking a decade plus later when he did this with Minnesota. So that was at that time, before you get into the personal things of Favre, that really did help his legacy. Really did.
It did.
And I also do think Favre cared about that too, honestly. So we'll see what this does with Aaron Rodgers. But I do want to get to the rest of the team here. Beyond Aaron Rodgers, for this team to do any of that, because it's a team game. Rodgers may sit around and say, I'm unhappy being 11-11 or 11-12 in the playoffs or whatever it is. But if they would get in the playoffs and lose right away, or even if they would win, it's not going to be just on